So welcome everyone to a new episode of HC Taboo, where we're going to talk about E for emotional intelligence. And now, this is not a new topic for us, seeing as we've talked about anxiety, burnout, control, and depression. And we've really touched upon these issues before about how to support people, how to be there, how to be a good support network, and how to look for a good support network. But we wanted to touch upon it from a slightly different angle today. We wanted to talk about it from the angle of not just helping people that have problems reach out to people that may struggle to understand those problems, but vice versa as well. Help those that might actually not have that much understanding of the struggles others are going through and how they can take steps to really meet them halfway. So Sylvia, I'm really excited to talk about this topic in what will probably be our shortest episode yet.
Yes, exactly. And likewise, John, so always great to talk with you and always great to exchange ideas. Let me go ahead and dive right in. You set us up so nicely. So, as I thought about this topic of emotional intelligence, it dawned on me that a lot of us who are emotionally intelligent might have this assumption that we need to be there to solve problems for those who might be struggling with the things we've talked about thus far in our series. And that is actually not true. And this, conclusion came from a very personal experience recently, actually, where I had to share with my leader, in a role that I had in-house within a company, that I wasn't very well. I wasn't doing so well, and mentally speaking. And what really, I think, fascinated me now looking back is we were both emotionally intelligent people, and I felt the pressure somehow to have all the answers, to be articulate and verbalize everything. And I think on his end, at least from the conversations we had, I think, initially there was probably some sense of I should know more, or I could do better, yet we both just came to it really vulnerably and openly to go, like, we're both really smart people, no doubt. We're all, emotionally at least intelligent, and yet we want to park those expectations. So let me just go ahead and share the story really quickly, and then we can unpack it together and share perhaps, our further reflections and nuggets with those listening and watching. So long story short, I just literally went to this manager and was very vulnerable about how I really was not well and I needed some time to sort things out. And I even prefaced it by saying I don't know how to articulate everything. It's very hard for me because I'm in the thick of it, yet I'm just verbalizing this so you know what's going on. And he in kind responded with a comment and then a question that I thought was very thoughtful. And he just said, I'm not sure how to talk about this with you. And I don't know that I have all the answers, nor is that perhaps what you want, but may I ask some questions so I can just understand and learn and really figure out how I can be of support. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to create the space for us to come together. And not only park those expectations, right? That somehow we have to have all the answers, or somehow that I have to, from my end, be super articulate, and he somehow had to, as the leader, have the right prescription, so to speak, or an answer to the problem. But yeah, we just were two humans vulnerably coming together in a space that could have been very difficult, right, for either party, and certainly very sensitive to at least one of us. But we created a very cooperative and collaborative space that I frankly wasn't expecting. So I share that hopefully to encourage those of you watching who are in leadership positions at home or at the office to just know that just because you're the perhaps more senior person, or the person who's supposed to be more knowledgeable with it, you actually can do more good for the person who's struggling by being vulnerable and open.
Yeah, and I think, that ties into a few things that I've talked about in terms of emotional intelligence before. Firstly, that, if you look at the psychological description of, or definition of, intelligence as a whole, it's not knowing a lot of stuff. It's not being a human encyclopedia. It is the ability to navigate problems effectively and to adapt to your surroundings. And I think often we mistake emotional intelligence as someone who just knows a lot about emotions or mental health, but really it's not about necessarily even already understanding. It's about striving to understand. And especially because in that sort of scenario, I've had people come to me when I was their boss who were struggling with things that they struggled to articulate. And with them struggling to articulate, I had to your point, show that patience and that vulnerability to be like, look, I don't know what you're going through, but I want to understand it and to move at the pace of the other person. And I think even if we take it a further step down or dig down deeper into it, I'd even say that if you struggle to understand, never discount the power of just showing understanding. And what I mean by that is even if you don't fully understand, if you see that that person needs extra support, go for it. Listen to them. And even if you're struggling to understand, just be there, find out from them what kind of support do they need, because we can do so much by showing that we're willing to be understanding, to show support. And that's something that I've seen being talked about a lot around race relations in the news recently. You see people on social media saying, just listen to those that have experienced this, etc. And I think it's really important that even though there are things that we can never fully grasp, and there are people in this world that will never fully grasp what it's like to suffer from depression or anxiety or certain physical ailments or family situations. But it shouldn't stop us from showing that understanding and meeting people halfway.
I like what you said when we first talked about this topic, and when I share my story with you, behind the scenes. I like what you said about how this manager did not feel pressure to say, "Oh, me too," or he somehow not somehow, but I like that he was very genuine. That that wasn't something he per se was struggling with himself. Yet it didn't discount his, or didn't stop him from leaning in to go, I want to understand. And so, right, just because he may not have the same experience, it didn't mean, for me anyway, that he didn't have empathy, right? Or even if he didn't have empathy exactly to my problems, I really did appreciate how he sought to understand and show a curiosity that was in service of me, and to find out how he could be of help. Right, to enable me to come out of this the murkiness, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's that conversation that happened on that one-on-one level is something that I'm really intrigued about on a bigger level. And the reason why I say this, and I've touched upon this in many of my videos before, where I tend to be very open about my mental health struggles and when I'm speaking on stage. And I've had so many people come up to me afterwards saying that, they really liked the fact that I was open, I was sharing this, and that they're not used to people opening up to that degree. And I think, in corporations or businesses or organizations of any type that are looking to increase their emotional intelligence or increase the awareness of it, a really powerful way is if you can find someone who can sort of champion it from within and is willing to, and it needs to be someone who's very willing to step into this, obviously, but is willing to share their experience and be sort of open to a forum of questions in a way. Obviously, this needs to not be a huge group, maybe, but from my experience, opening up about it has led to other people being willing to open up about it, because it's not always, and this is another thing we've discussed sort of behind the scenes, it's not always the people that don't talk about it or people that don't want to, or people that lack emotional intelligence. It might be people that just feel awkward about it, they don't know how to talk about it, and there is this stigma around pretty much any taboo topic, whether mental health, whether it's variety of prejudice, whether it's different family situations that people think, oh, I can't ask about that. That's rude. If I start trying to pry, that's rude. And it's often because people don't know how to phrase the questions, and the questions might come out wrong, or they're speaking to someone who, frankly, does not want to have that conversation. And finding the people that are willing to have those difficult conversations, people that have maybe gone through something in the past, worked through it, and can share it from the angle of someone who's been through it, is now in a better place, but can relate to where they were in the past. And let people in on a little bit of insight there, I think can be a really powerful way to open up a discussion and allow people on both sides of the emotional intelligence spectrum to really show each other that understanding.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And one thing I keep coming back to as we proceed with the series is how many of us were taught through one or two experiences of having been burned, right? Like, let's say we approached somebody, we were a little awkward ourselves, and then we kind of got reprimanded for it, right? Or like literally got our hands slapped, like, you don't do that. That's not polite dinner conversation. Yet, that one or two experiences should not be the only experiences, right? And I like how you're encouraging people to kind of rethink, like, how to open up in a way, or how to be inviting people to open up, right? So it's two-way street. I think, for those of us who might be on the receiving end of those awkward comments or sort of the awkward questions, even when the intent is good, right? How do I, and this, I'm going to speak for myself, how do I in this case not react, right, negatively, and just really see that they are trying, and not lash out and just be like, oh, that is so rude, or that's so stupid, or whatever negative adjective I want to throw in there, but to, accept that and know that someone is coming to us vulnerably, just as we are vulnerable in having this challenge or this problem. Yet I often talk about how our brains remember that one painful experience, and that is seared into our memory. And I think that, unfortunately, is the barrier to constructive conversations and open dialogue with the topics that you just referenced a moment ago.
Yeah, and I think it often comes down to, as well, not just those negative experiences, but also the connotations that come with even hypothetical scenarios. I saw someone talk about on LinkedIn not too long ago saying, oh, we should all be more open about our mental health. And the first comment I saw was someone saying, nope, your workplace will use it against you, which was the immediate thing that came to this person's head, probably because either had it happened to him or he's seen it happen. And when people hear about this, whether it's in their own business or elsewhere, they start thinking, oh, I can't open up about this. And it's the exact reason why people make up excuses and make up illnesses in order to get out of work if they actually need a mental health day. And it's kind of funny to me when people say, oh, if the discussion gets more open, a lot of people will just start making stuff up. They'll just say, oh, I'm feeling anxious today just to get a day off. And every time someone says that, I just go, okay, think about it this way. People regularly in a place I used to work would say that they had food poisoning instead of saying that they had mental health problems. So those people were literally more willing to make their management think of them stuck on the toilet than that they were feeling down that day. And if that's the case, I don't really see the massive rise that these people imagine will come in with people calling in sick with mental health reasons, because people are already calling in sick for mental health reasons. They're just giving a different excuse. And what I found with my teams at that workplace, when I encouraged people to be open with me and showed understanding to that degree, I actually saw people be more open about maybe they were feeling bad in the morning, but they were willing to come in the afternoon. Whereas before, they would call in sick, and then the anxiety of coming back just grew and grew to the point where they ended up taking 3 days off or a week off. And then they'd come back and be like, yeah, man, that was a bad food poisoning. Man, that was a bad case. man, I was just 5 days. Whew. And
It's a doozy.
yeah, and people are jumping through hoops in order to try and escape having to talk about it, not because they don't want to, but because they feel like they can't. And I think that openness, even though there were probably people in that business who wouldn't have been as open about it, just the fact that myself and a few others were like, look, speak to me. I don't need to know all the details. Just speak to me in the language that's comfortable to you, and we'll figure this out. And it created a much better atmosphere where people felt comfortable enough that I remember once someone was off for a while, falling into a deep depressive slump, and ended up actually sending me a message saying, I'm coming back on Monday. Could you read this to the team before I'm back, just to prepare them? And it was basically him just telling them exactly what he'd been going through, saying, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. I just ask that you don't ask me on my first day back. That you just let me, like, we just act like it didn't happen on the first day, then I'm happy to. And he felt so relieved being able to come back, and everyone was just like, hey, welcome back, how you doing? Everyone showed him that respect, and that just shows the power of that openness, that vulnerability of everyone involved, because there were people in that team that you would have never expected to speak up about something like this, but they appreciated his candor. And then I know some of them ended up taking him out for lunch and sitting down and being like, you know, are you willing to talk about it a little bit, and like exploring? And it made him feel more comfortable in the team.
That's so beautiful. And gosh, it's moving me to tears almost, because yeah, like I love that he was able to create the outcome that would be suitable and meaningful for him, because he did lean into being open about the problem, which goes back to the whole reason why we started this, is because you can't get to that solution, you can't get to that outcome, or you can't even ask for support if you don't feel okay talking about what caused that problem in the first place. And I love that, right, by being open and asking for exactly what he needed, right? He saw that people embraced him, right, and gave the support that he asked for, and right, and he also, I think in a way, was really smart to go, I'm an open book. I just need to do it in a way that would be honoring who I am, and allowing me that space to kind of regroup and you know, slowly get back into it. So gosh, what a beautiful story. And I love that people were respectful, generous, open-hearted, open-minded. That's really great to hear.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to, I guess, tie a bit of a knot on this episode to finish it up, I think that's really the nature of any taboo topic, where, you know, once we find the right avenue to talk about it, that's when the taboo goes. And so far, we've almost entirely talked about mental health and that side of things, but that's partially because, well, the original idea was sort of the alphabet of mental health, but when we turned it into taboo topics, one really interesting topic kept coming up. And as well, when I asked on LinkedIn what people wanted to see, one of the most common ones is actually what we're going to do next week with F for finance. So, you know, people avoid talking about money unless it's to brag about it on Instagram. And there's so much shame involved, and so many people that, similar to mental health, are told not to talk about it. You shouldn't discuss your salary, you shouldn't discuss your money problems. And it's an interesting topic to dive into, and I'm excited because we're going to have to approach it from a completely different perspective, but I'm sure we'll still manage to figure out how to get that taboo bingo card of patterns and language and openness into it anyway.
Well, I already have a story. Literally coming into this conversation with you, someone had opened up about their financial concerns, and it was literally the first. Now, we've been in quarantine for 3 months, almost 4, and that's the first person out of my network and group of friends to be that honest and open about it. And you know, we were able to just dive into it and unpack some things to help this person at least get to that next critical step. So, but again, right, they really felt so shameful having to say it. And yeah, so I lots we can talk about for our next episode, for sure.
For sure. Well, looking forward to it next week.
Likewise. See you then.